It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I got a standing desk, so feeling pretty cool. My first job out of college was a standing desk company, and the company moved to China after 4 months of working there, so that ended pretty quickly. We're not here today to talk about standing chair companies. We're here today to talk about my first year with the Pocket 6K camera, and to talk about, in a very non-ish technical way, what that first year has been like, and like, is this a purchase I would make again? A little exposition. Last year during the pandemic, obviously everything shut down. There was no financial justification for me to get the Pocket 6K other than my life had been shrinked. I didn't have a car, and so if I wanted to film something, I would have to like lug my URSA into a backpack and bike. And that was just not sustainable, and it was not a liability that I wanted to like put myself into. So I was looking for like an alternative B camera. The Nikon Z6, I just wanted something that could be a little bit more comparable to what I was shooting with the URSA. So I looked at the Pocket 6K, and I was looking at a ton of different stuff. I was looking at the Pocket 6K. I was like fantasizing about getting the Panasonic Lumix S1H, but that was like $6,000, and there was no justification for that. I came to the decision to buy the Pocket 6K sort of as okay, well, I guess this is my option. So when I got it, I wasn't very enthusiastic that I needed it. It wasn't solving a problem that I was excited to solve. It was helping me bridge a convenience for what I had hoped was going to be a very short-term problem, i.e. the pandemic and this restriction on travel. That first experience with the Pocket 6K, getting it, is kind of like overarchingly the reason why I'm not a huge fan of it. And don't get me wrong, like, it is a great camera. If you're looking for Blackmagic RAW codec, the Blackmagic Pocket 6K does that, and it does it well. And if it was the only camera that I had and was a step up from where I was with the Nikon Z6, then it would make total sense. For $2,000 for that, it's a great deal. However, because I already owned an URSA, and this camera was, you know, essentially a B camera for me, I didn't really start with it being in love. I was sort of hoping that the Pocket 6K would be something that I could easily just put together and go, and maybe mount it on a gimbal if I needed that, and it just wasn't that. The Pocket 6K, straight out of the bag, they give you just the camera and a little Canon ELB battery, and that lasts you, it says 30 minutes, it lasts me about 15 minutes, and then it would randomly start cutting off. And so in order to get the camera to work, you have to buy a real like brick battery, and here I can show you mine. So this is my Pocket 6K, just base. I mean, all I have attached here is the battery, and I've got the battery here, and I've got a tilt-a cage, which you can see mounted there pretty quickly. Click it together. And this gets you like 3 hours of battery life, which is pretty good. I mean, my little V-mount batteries from my URSA give me about 2.5, so this gives me a little bit more. And so like, I really wanted this to be easy, but as soon as you put that brick battery on the Pocket 6K, you can't mount it to a gimbal. It requires cage in order for that to kind of work nicely. And with that cage, you know, with the cage, you need a handle, and then you need a handle to mount all these other things like a microphone. I mean, it takes SD cards, but you can't really film in 6K much at all with the SD cards, so you need an Angel CFast card, but those are expensive. So very quickly, the camera just starts to add up in costs. And, you know, for the $2,000, you get a nice camera, but it's not really usable in terms of just straight out of the box. You have to add all of these layers onto it. And so for something like, you know, if you're wanting something that's quick and easy to assemble, all of a sudden you have to keep it in a cage, and then you have to, you know, assemble parts of that cage or rig. And then you have to mount on a monitor because the screen doesn't fold. There's no different kind of eyepiece like the 6K Pro now has, which for me solves a little problems, a year or two late. But so very quickly I started to get not angry at a camera, but I was just frustrated. It was not a smart investment for me. And that's not to say that this is a bad camera. It just doesn't fit the utility for what I need. Now, a year later with the 6K, I've learned to use it essentially as a B cam. If I'm going somewhere, if I'm covering a protest, if I'm, you know, I just want to get quick B-roll of something downtown, or I want to go on site somewhere, but I want to kind of be a little bit more mobile, or if I'm doing something with a little bit more low stakes where I'm not, you know, I don't want my camera to get damaged or ruined, I'll use the 6K. And so for that, I'm grateful that I have that buffer. But everything that they've added into the 6K Pro makes some of those really annoying problems, like the screen being fixed, the battery life sucking crap right out of the box. I've really been trying to figure out how I can like it more. I think for me, it just, I want to think of it as like a little baby mini URSA, but it just is not. I think in the 6K, there's 13 stops of dynamic range versus the URSA's, 15 or 16. And that for me is something you can very easily tell apart. I mean, when you put the images together in post, you can definitely tell if you're close enough, if you're shooting even at the compression rate of 1:1. So you can tell the difference between the image quality, and it is what it is. But I mean, it's a good B cam, and I'm looking forward to as we start to open up. And I mean, even if I were to take on a second AC and use the Blackmagic 6K as like a second camera, I would feel comfortable doing that. Some of the things I was hoping for in terms of mobility, in terms of just setting things up and making life on, you know, a run and gun set a little bit easier, have just kind of been setbacks for me and have made me not want to use that. Instead just go to my URSA, because it takes just about enough time, as much time to put the URSA together than it does to put the 6K together. And if it means I'm gonna get more control over my environment, you know, for me it's like, well, why would I use the 6K if it's gonna take as much time and it's still gonna be ergonomically weird? I have to set up a whole rig versus the URSA, which I know is gonna give me a better product, and I have a little bit more flexibility with the settings, the indies, and the frame rate options, as well as the quality of the overall image. So that's just me. I mean, overall, I'm every time I use the 6K, I'm optimistic that it's gonna be a great experience. And I've never had a terrible experience, except for the fact that sometimes the battery will cut out and then you're just kind of fucked. I'm looking forward to it as a little bit more of a casual camera when things start to open up. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. I hope everyone's doing well. I know for me, my last 2 weeks have been just nuts, and it's great. It's all of the business from the last year from COVID has just now all of a sudden tried to squeeze its existence through the tiny month of April, and it's ugh. So the last 2 weeks have been great, have been really good, but busy. That's just welcome. So anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope you guys are finding happiness and peace and love and joy, and we'll keep it real, and See you next time.